What if I told you the secret to a perfectly placed stamped card isn't talent? It's a piece of copy paper, a stamp, a pair of scissors, and some adhesive. Today on Michelle Makes Cards, I'm going to show you how to build a reusable template that gives you the perfect placement every single time. The MISTI is an important part of this whole process. First, we'll place a half sheet of regular copy paper into the MISTI, nothing fancy. We'll be stamping the square shape and the With Sympathy sentiment from this stamp set. I'll be stamping my images in my MISTI just like we always do. The impressions don't have to be perfect, they just have to be good enough. I've already stamped a few squares off camera, but we're going to do a few more, so I have several to play with. Once the squares and sentiment are stamped, we'll use our scissors to cut the shapes out. The sentiment only needs to be a rectangle. I'm using one of the large rectangle dies from my Gina Master Layouts 1 set for this project, but any rectangle die you have on hand will work perfectly. I'll be die cutting 2 pieces, one from my copy paper for my template and one from my house brand of white 100-pound cardstock for the finished panel. And here we are, 2 panels ready to go, one in cardstock and one in copy paper. Here's where the magic happens. This is pure design play. I take all of my squares and the sentiment and start arranging them on the copy paper panel. I try a diagonal layout first. It's classic and always worth checking. But watch what happens when I bring in the sentiment. It just doesn't seem to fit. So next I'll give a 5-spot dice pattern a try with the sentiment as the center dot. Kind of fun, but it does feel a little contrived. Let's stack the squares vertically. Rotate the whole panel to landscape, and then place the sentiment below. Yeah, I think we're getting warmer. I'll rotate back to portrait and try a triangle arrangement of all 3 squares. Looking good. The sentiment down at the lower right-hand side, and now, magically, everything seems to have breathing room. Yes, this is the one. So the lesson here is play. You'll know when it's right. Plus, having that sentiment cutout means you're never going to have to guess about spacing. I use Tape Runner off screen to attach the pieces of the copy paper template, which means I can tweak my design if needed. Using my ruler and T-square, I can make sure my placement is centered and even. Because I used Tape Runner to adhere the elements, I can finesse the elements as necessary. Then, once I'm happy with the arrangement, I can press the elements down firmly. This piece of copy paper is now my template. It tells you exactly where every stamp goes, every single time. This is where the template earns its keep. Place it right into the corner of your MISTI. That corner registration is what makes everything repeatable. Before I bring my first stamp, I do a quick check with my T-square. Nothing moves on my template without me knowing about it. Your sequence for each square is going to be the same. Position your stamp over the template, and you can use your T-square to confirm your positioning if you need to. Once you're happy, close the MISTI door, pick up that stamp, and then move your template out and bring in your cardstock panel. Double check your positioning. Looks good. Now I'm going to bring out my Gina K Designs Light Lilac, ink up that stamp, and then I'm going to press into the cardstock, and you'll see that I end up stamping 3 times. I know that stamp impression looks a little splotchy right now, but don't worry, as it dries, everything will smooth out because Gina K Designs ink has a smoothing agent in it. Sometimes things go a little awry in the craft room. I drop my template back in, and wouldn't you know, the square moved. Put it back into position, check, bring back the stamp, lay it on top of that square, and wouldn't you know, the stamp picked up the template piece again. Apparently, I should have used more tape runner. Oh well, now we're back to stamping. I'm using the medium lilac, and I'm going to ink up that stamp and press. 2 more applications, just like the first square. All right, template back in. And then for our third and final square, line up the stamp. Cardstock in, double check positioning, looks good. And now for the dark lilac. This is a firecracker of a color, so I want to make sure it's vibrant. And it's beautiful. Clean off that square stamp, we're done with it. Now we switch to the fern stamp. Our cardstock stays right where it is in the MISTI. Position the fern over my first square, close the lid, pick up the stamp. I'm inking with Gina K Designs Black Onyx ink today, and I'll ink up that stamp really well. Then press one more time. The dark lilac is such an intense color and the black is getting a little lost. Let's give my VersaFine Clair black ink a try for more punch. Okay, we'll start off by cleaning off that stamp. Make sure it's dry, ink up, and press. I think 2 applications should do it. Yes, absolutely much better. Clean your stamp, reposition to the next square, and repeat. Since we used both inks for the first fern, we're going to carry on just for consistency. 2 applications of black onyx, 2 applications of VersaFine. One thing to note about VersaFine is that it does need a good amount of dry time. Make sure you set aside your card panel before you handle it. It would be a real shame to smudge your work. Last up, the sentiment. I'll switch out my cardstock for my template again. I'll position my With Sympathy sentiment over top of the sentiment part of the template. Then I'll take a quick peek against my T-square before I pick up that stamp. And I did have to tweak it just a teensy little bit. Now that it's picked up, one more comparison with my T-square through the MISTI door. My husband's mantra plays loudly in my head: measure twice, cut once. Plus, I'm a little obsessed with my T-square. Swap out that template for the project panel one last time. We're almost there. I have a fabulous tool from Simon Says Stamp called the Positively Perfect Placement Tool that allows me to test the sentiment placement on the tool before committing to the final project. If you don't have one of these, a plain piece of acetate from one of your stamp sets will work in a pinch. Ink up with whatever ink you have on hand and do your test stamp. Press, lift up the door, and take a peek. Yes, I think this looks pretty good. Wipe off the tool and the stamp and take it out of the MISTI. Now we're ready for the real thing. I use Ranger Archival Jet Black for sentiments. It's just a personal preference, but use whatever kind of ink you love. Ink up the stamp and press gently. I do find that 2 or 3 light impressions will always be much better than one heavy press because you really do risk distorting your stamp image. I do think I need a second application, so we'll wipe off the stamp, make sure it's dry, ink up again, and then gently press. Perfect. And here is a closer look of our finished panel. I'm being super careful since archival ink also takes a little time to dry. While we wait for that panel to dry, I want to show you something I do with every template, and honestly, with some of my favorite finished cards too. I photocopy them and trim to size. That way, any design I love is ready to recreate whenever I need it. I always make sure to have a few copies on hand. I'll bring that panel back. It's perfectly dry. Now we'll put it all together. I'm placing our finished panel onto an A2 size note card, centering as best I can. Before I glue everything down, I'll do a quick double check with my T-square, make sure I'm straight and centered. And with the magic of video editing, here she is. Thanks so much for joining me today on Michelle Makes Cards. Now you have everything you need to make your very own reusable template and, of course, perfect placement every single time. Don't forget, there's a nifty link in the description box if you want to grab my house brand of white 100-pound weight cardstock. If you enjoyed this video, it would also mean the world to me if you would like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for hanging out with me, and until next time, happy crafting!